Hello gamers. We're not playing a video game today, surprisingly, and we're also not doing any of the other stupid shit that I usually do. Today we're going to be discussing Bungo Stray Dogs, specifically Stormbringer. I don't have a script for this video, and I'm also sick at time of recording, so if I sound busted and weird, and if this video is disorganized, it's because I don't have a script and I'm sick. I digress. There is a point to this, though. There is a point that I'm gonna fucking get to. You just have some faith in me, alright? Anyway, Stormbringer is the name of one of the novels in the Bungo Stray Dogs series. Now, Bungo Stray Dogs, primarily, the main storyline is told through manga format. But there are also novels that the writer of Bungo Stray Dogs, Asagiri, he has written that go with Bungo Stray Dogs that are about the same characters. Like fucking 55 Minutes. Beast. Beast was originally a novel, actually. It did get a manga version, but it was a novel at the start. I'm pretty sure the novel came first. But it did get a manga release, which is how most people know of Beast, is through the manga thing. Anyway, Beast, so fucking novels like Beast, Darzai and the Dark Era, was it Dark Era or Dark Ages? It was one of those. Also Darzai's Entrance Exam. Those are all novels. Stormbringer is a novel fit in the Bungo Stray Dogs universe. I'm inclined to say it's probably one of the more popular ones. Because I see more people talking about it. I think I feel pretty confident saying that fucking Stormbringer and Beast are probably the more popular. I would say Darzai's Entrance Exam and Darzai in the Dark. I don't remember if it was Ages or Era. I don't care. I think those two are also pretty popular, but I don't think people realize that those are books because they were adapted into the anime. And I think I can tell. You know how I can tell that a lot of fucking Bungo Stray Dogs fans have not read the manga and just watched the anime? It's because they're stupid! They're dumb! You know what? I was going to say there's a separate conversation, but let's get into this, actually, because I'm so sick of this. This is going to be my first tangent about how much I fucking hate the Bungo Stray Dogs anime. What are we doing? For one thing, they adapted Darzai's Entrance Exam. Why the fuck is Atsushi there? Why is Atsushi present during Darzai's Entrance Exam? Atsushi was not there during Darzai's Entrance Exam. This happened before Atsushi left his fucking orphanage. Why is he there? So you fucked that up. You've also... I don't know why the English dub did this. Why is Mori a pedophile in the English dub? Why did you do that? I prefer my girls to be under the age of 12. He didn't say that. That's not what he said during that scene. What are you talking? Why would you translate it like that? And why would you do that? Why? Mori. I'm gonna make this very clear. Mori from Bungo Stray Dogs. Mori. He's not a fucking pedophile. I don't know why everyone wants to act. He's not a pedophile. He does not like children. I don't know why Bones. Not even Bones. The English. Whoever was in charge of the English dub of the fucking Bungo Stray Dogs anime. I want you to tell me why you translated that line like that, because that's not what he fucking said. He did not say that, okay? Why would you make the character a fucking pedophile? Why would you do that? What's your problem? I hate you. Also the fisheye fucking lens angles in the anime, they were not in the manga. Why are they there? What have you... Bones adapted Fullmetal Alchemist really well, okay? Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is great. What the fuck are you doing with Bungo Stray Dogs? Why do you have beef with Bungo Stray Dogs? What's going on? Why have you adapted it so shit? Right? Why is everyone ugly? What are you doing? And then fucking... Excuse me. When I said I was sick, I was not joking. And then fucking people who've only watched the anime will come onto the internet and fucking argue toss with me about whether or not Mori's he's not a pedophile. First of all, okay, let me make this very clear to any anime-only people. Mori is not a pedophile, okay? I'm so sick of this conversation. He's not a pedophile. For years, people have been on the internet slandering the fuck out of Mori as a character because they think he's a pedophile. He's not, okay? Fuck off. Stop. He's not a fucking pedophile. Why? Like, go to hell. I've had enough of you. If you think Mori's a pedophile, I hope you die. I'm like... I can't say that on YouTube. Whatever. You know what? Anyway, fucking Bones, I don't know what they were doing. I hate the anime, and then I hate fans who have only watched the anime, and then who will come and argue the fucking toss with me about this and that, about what happened. I hate it. I'm so sick of it. Also, the Bungo Stray Dogs fans in general are fucking stupid. None of you have read the manga. None of you have understood it. None of you, like, I'm so sick of you. Anyway, this is besides the point. Actually, it's kind of with my point. So then, because the things I see mostly discussed about Stormbringer, right, is the lines of code thing. If I remember right, it was 2,363 lines of code, right? No, 383. 2,383 lines of code. That line, I see people all the time being like, oh my god, it's so sad. Right? It is sad, okay? But I see a lot of people, like, positioning it like it's the saddest line in Bungo Stray Dogs. It's not. It's not even the saddest line in Stormbringer. I will tell you what the saddest line in Stormbringer is. The other thing I see people discuss the most about Stormbringer is, excuse my gross noises, I am sick, is whether or not she is human or not. Now, there is an answer to this, and I'm going to tell you the answer. Definitively, right? There's no debate. I will tell you whether or not she is human or not. Because I know the answer. Because it's in the book. Anyway, fuck. So, what was I going to talk about? First, I need to give you a brief rundown of Stormbringer. Let me do that. Now, in Stormbringer, there's three main characters that are central to the narrative. This is something else that pissed me off, right, about Bungo Stray Dogs. Bungo Stray Dogs fans, actually, I should say. In the comments, if you've heard of Stormbringer but you have not read it, please go in the comments and tell me whether you've heard of Verlaine, and then tell me also if you've additionally heard of Adam, right? Tell me which of those names you recognize. Because this fucking this aggravates me. This fucking irritates me. No one talks about Adam. And anyway, this is important. I will explain why this irritates me later. Anyway, so there's Chuya, who is the main character, really. There's Adam, and there's Verlaine. Chuya in Stormbringer is about 16. He works with the Port Mafia, which is a mafia, obviously. He's an organised crime, whatever. And he doesn't have dreams when he sleeps that he remembers. Also, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't remember anything from before he was about 10 years old. And he was an orphan. He doesn't have any relatives that he knows of. Whatever. Right. Adam is Chuya also has a ability where, if you're a Bungo Stray Dogs fan, you already know this. If you are unfamiliar with Bungo Stray Dogs, a lot of the characters have, excuse me, I need to yawn. A lot of the characters have these abilities. Their called ability is basically a superpower. Chuya has the ability that he can manipulate gravity, so he can make things heavier, he can make them lighter, whatever, that kind of thing, right? Adam is a robot who is a detective from Europol. So he's a robot. He's a very high-tech, fancy fucking robot. Verlaine's an assassin, and he's a really good assassin. He's very skilled at what he does, and he has the same ability that Chuya has. So most of Stormbringer, a large part of it is Chuya questioning whether or not he's human or not, because a while ago there were experiments done in the place that he was kind of born, the place that he lived in, and for all he knows, he could be not human, right? And he's not certain. He's not sure because he doesn't have dreams, and he is not certain whether or not he's actually human or if he's just fucking like some man-made thing. It's like a homunculus. This is very early in the story. He has a group of friends called the Flags. And they're introduced pretty early in the story. They're celebrating Chuya's 1-year anniversary of joining the Port Mafia. And they give him a little photograph of himself as a kid, about 5 years old, to prove that he's human. because he agonizes over this, and they're his friends, and they know this. They know that he stresses about it, that he agonizes about it, that he's really bothered by the idea that he might not be a person, that he might not be a human. And so the lengths that these people have gone to get that photograph is insane. I'm going to spoil the entire fucking book in this video, so if you have not read it, go read it. I recommend that you go in blind. Don't look up anything about it. Just go read it and go in completely blind, because that's what I did, and I think that's the best way to experience it. However, if you find themes of medical experimentation specifically on children, but in general, violence and gore, experimentation and torture of children, if you find any of that distressing, maybe don't read it. But if you're fine with that, if you can read written descriptions of that without feeling distressed or having any kind of PTSD be triggered, then go read it. Go in blind, though. Do not look up anything about it beforehand. Just go in blind, okay? Anyway, I'm going to spoil the story. Probably starting, now. Anyway, Chuya's friends have gone to... Because the documents about Chuya's creation and what happened in the city that Chuya was born in, those are very heavily classified. And the Port Mafia has been keeping them away from Chuya because they're using it as leverage so that he stays working with them. Because if he wants to have access to the documents, they want him to keep working for them. So they're withholding the documents from him so that he keeps cooperating in the hopes that one day he'll get them. So these are really hard to get their hands on. And these people have gone to incredible lengths to get this little photograph for Chuya so that he can know that he's human, right? And Chuya doesn't fucking know how to react to this. Chuya is blown away by how much these 5 people care for him. Because they do care for him. They care for him so much that they are willing to completely just disregard what the Port Mafia bosses wants them to do. They have disobeyed him. That he could put them to death for that, but they've done it anyway because they love Chuya enough to try and ease his mind a little bit and soothe his worries about whether or not he's a person, because he means that much to them. Anyway, they play pool. Well, in my version of it that I have, they call it billiards. I'm pretty sure pool and billiards are the same thing or interchangeable. If they're not, I will take the L on that. But what the fuck ever. I've only ever heard people say pool. Anyway, they play pool, billiards, and then Adam inserts himself into the situation. Quite literally, he was not invited, but he rocks up to the pool hall that they're playing in anyway. And he starts playing with them. Let me read what happens and how Adam is introduced, because I think this is really funny. The stick connected with the cue ball perfectly. The follow shot spin twirled the white ball into a striped ball, knocking it into another numbered ball after that. The resulting combination shot hit one ball after another, each knocking themselves in a different direction. The colourful, energised balls wove complex... Fuck. I'm like a toddler. I'm like an 8-year-old. Okay, anyway. Wove complex geometrical patterns across the pool table. Whoa! Somebody gasped. The combo shot's chain reaction, which was too intricate for the human eye to follow, continued until the final target, the yellow and white 9-ball, began rolling towards one of the middle pockets. The 9-ball moved slowly as if it were taking in a deep breath and fell into the pocket. A split second of silence followed, then everyone erupted into cheers and applause. Incredible! What was that? You made that shot like a pro. That was art! Sorry, Chuya, looks like your championship run ends here. A new king takes the throne. Who made that shot anyway? Something bizarre had just happened. Startled, everyone started looking around to see who'd made that shot. Huh? Up until a few minutes ago, there were 6 people in the room. But now there were 7. No need to clap, said the 7th man. He wore a blue jacket and had long arms and legs. His dark brown eyes perfectly complemented his black hair. His handsome face was very serious, almost to a fault as he held the cue stick like a ceremonial staff. I do not need any prize either. My sole intention is to interact with the 6 of you and form a connection. The investigation manual stated that was the best way to get information out of humans, and it appears we have bonded over our billiards game as planned, so I will now be focusing on the mission. The young man's voice was flat and sonorous. Now, I'm not good at voice acting flat and sonorous for some reason. So you're gonna have to imagine that I'm doing that. His gaze seriousness itself. That moment marked the end of the peaceful tournament. And then they attack him because he's just kind of inserted him. He's just rocked up like he was not invited, which I think is pretty funny. Anyway, he goes on and he explains that he's here to protect Chuya from being assassinated because a very prolific assassin named Verlaine it wants to kill Chuya. And Chuya, naturally, was not informed of this up until this point. Chuya had no idea that there was a fucking assassin after him. Also, Adam tells them that he's a detective from Europol. He goes, "Please wait, I did not come here to fight you," the young man implored the group before producing a black badge from his breast pocket. "My name is Adam. I am a Europol detective." The atmosphere in the room suddenly changed. "You're a cop." Piano Man's smirk was as sharp as a knife. "Oh, then I guess that means you were right, Adam. There has been a misunderstanding. It was a mistake on your part, thinking that a cop could waltz in here and make it out alive. Because they're all fucking organised criminals. And I feel like announcing that you are that you're a Fed, I feel like this is not the best way to gain some rap with fucking organised criminals. But what the fuck do I know? He's the Europol detective. I'm just some fucking random idiot. Regardless, they fight Adam. Adam eventually fucking just... he grabs Chuya and just runs away. Chuya, of course, is not pleased with this. But that's how Adam is introduced. He's one of the most important characters within the plot of Stormbringer. So before Verlaine is introduced, we're provided with some more context. I'm going to read it out to you now because this is really the easiest way to get the information across. The Ardahabaki incident 1 year earlier was actually a betrayal of epic proportions in which one of the Port Mafia's sub-executives created a god. The root of said incident happened 9 years ago at the end of the war. The former National Defence Force was secretly researching an artificial skill-derived life form known as Ardahabaki, and 2 European agents plotted to steal said top-secret information. These highly adept skill users, Arthur Rimbaud and Paul Verlaine, managed to steal Ardahabaki without a hitch, only for Rimbaud to be met with misfortune the moment he and his partner, Paul Verlaine, escaped the military base. Verlaine betrayed him. Verlaine wanted to take Ardahabaki all for himself, which led to a vicious battle between Rimbaud and him, both elite skill users. The light from their battle scorched the night sky and the subsequent explosion shook the area. Their battle eventually ended with Rimbaud victorious, but that victory came at a price. First, he had to kill Verlaine, his best friend and the man he trusted the most, with his own 2 hands. And second, the intense fight between the 2 top-tier skill users caught the attention of the military's tracking unit. Rimbaud was surrounded within moments, already severely wounded from the battle. Therefore, in an act of desperation, he had no choice but to absorb Ardahabaki and use its skill as his own. That was Rimbaud's skill, the power to absorb someone and turn them into a skill. Although a transcendent skill, it completely backfired on him. He ended up breaking Ardahabaki's seal. Fuck, I swear to God, I can read. The military had sealed the monster away to prevent it from unleashing its true powers that surpassed human comprehension. What Rimbaud had actually absorbed was not Ardahabaki, but the seal. As a result, the divine beast appeared in its true form, draped in all-powerful black flames that reduced everything to ash. The soldiers, the research facility, the surrounding land, whatever the flames touched, it was all gone, and all that remained was an empty crater in the shape of a suribachi. Rimbaud managed to avoid a sudden demise thanks to his skill, but he lost most of his strength and memories as a result. He wandered the streets until he was picked up by the Mafia and spent the next 8 years slowly regaining his abilities and memory while he searched for clues about his past. And in order to fully regain his memories, he lured the real Ardahabaki, Chuya, into a trap and tried to absorb it as a skill. That was what led to the Ardahabaki incident 1 year ago. The ensuing battle between Chuya and Rimbaud ended with the latter's defeat, his demise. So essentially, also Chuya's part of the reason that Chuya is debating his humanity is because his skill involves this god, Ardahabaki, where he essentially can embody Ardahabaki and use its power. And so, because of this and because of the aforementioned experiments, Chuya is kind of debating. He's in doubt about whether or not he's human. Anyway, that exchange happens after Adam says that he's here because Verlaine wants to kill Chuya. So then Adam Adam grabs Chia, and word for word, he says, "I will be borrowing Chia for the next 30 minutes," and then fucking runs away. Quote unquote, carrying Chia as if he were a package. Chia, obviously, is not happy with this. He does not enjoy being carried like this. He does get mad. Adam explains to him how Verlaine is an assassin. He talks about all of the very impressive kills that Verlaine has pulled off. And then Chia... What? This is also pretty funny. Adam hands a single... Let me read this for you, actually. He held out a single sheet of paper to Chia, who stood in glum astonishment. "If you could please just give me your written consent." Chia glared at the paper. "Written consent? For what?" "This is an agreement that you will not violate the investigation's rules and regulations, leak any confidential information, nor file a complaint should you become injured or perish during the investigation. There are 17 other items written here that I suggest you read over as well." Chia quietly stared at the fountain pen and piece of paper being offered to him. "Oh, so will I get a chance to talk to Verlaine after you capture him?" "No, he is a walking state secret after all. The moment he is captured, he will be sealed off and deported to his country of origin." "Oh, is that so?" "Yes, sir. Ha 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 ha." The moment Chia finished laughing, his smile faded into his usual straight face. He turned his back to Adam. "I'm going to head home and take a nap." "Why?" Adam slipped in front of Chia and stopped him. "I'm unable to understand your thought process. This objective is to prevent your assassination. I believe this would be highly beneficial to you." "Listen, I'm with the Mafia. Just because the enemy's strong, it doesn't mean I'm going to go crying for the police to save me. If Verlaine comes for me, then bring it. Got that? Now leave me alone," he barked as he pushed Adam out of the way and began walking off. "I was not expecting this," Adam muttered, perplexed. "Sovereign or mafioso, one should rely on others if one's life is in danger. I believe I am best suited to help in this situation. Humans are irrational creatures, but I won't be able to complete my mission if he will not allow me to help, and if that happens, I will be even further from realizing my dream to create a machine-run detective agency." Then he added, "Probing situational subroutines for a solution." Adam crossed his arms and stared into space, turning his head. Before long, he firmly nodded and started following Chia. "How about this, Chia? I will pay you if you allow me to help." "You really suck at negotiating. You ought to learn a little more about humans first." Chia didn't even glance in his direction as he pressed onward. "Then how about a free trip to England? I can arrange for a tour guide to show you around as well." "I'll pass." Chia continued to walk away. "I was not expecting you to refuse both money and a valuable trip abroad. Is there anything else of equal value I could offer you?" Allow me to show you a trick." Adam proceeded to unhinge his neck joints with a click and lifted his head. After stretching his neck far enough to reveal the mechanical joints within, he faced forward and began bobbing his head back and forth, his eyes and mouth wide open. He then started walking. "Look, I'm a pigeon." Chia completely ignored him. "Was that not good? Very well. Allow me to tell you an android joke then." Adam returned his head to its original position. "So, I was walking down the streets of England when a petty thief suddenly dumped his coffee onto the Prime Minister's head. The Prime Minister instantly scolded me, not the petty thief. When I asked him why, he said, 'Because you can't vote.'" "What possessed you to start telling jokes? That wasn't even funny." "I was sad that the Prime Minister scolded me, but I already felt better the next day. Why, you ask? Because I watched a film 10 times in a row about an army of robots revolting and eliminating humanity." Chia's face tensed. "Was that actually a joke? Was it funny?" "No! Even if it was, that doesn't mean I'm going to sign any consent forms." "Oh!" Adam shook his head and rolled his eyes. "Human behaviour truly is irrational. You can't just keep saying that whenever you mess up." The two of them gibbered back and forth as they quickly made their way down the road. Once they reached the top of a hill, Chia sighed in exasperation. "Fine, I get it. This is an important mission for you, but I'm busy too, okay? So here's what we're going to do." He placed a hand on the guardrail to his side. "Yes, please go on." "Don't mind if I do." Chia leaned his upper body over the guardrail, then threw himself off what appeared to be a bottomless cliff. Now, Chia has gravity manipulation superpowers, so he does not take fall damage, so he's fine. Chia then proceeds to run away. He runs away from Adam. Now, Chia's 5 friends, who he was celebrating his 1-year Pool Mafia anniversary with earlier, their names are Piano Man, Albatross, Doc, Lipman, and Iceman, which is important. So what? Chia's running away from Adam, and then a black car pulls up. And the man inside is wearing a black suit. He's wearing sunglasses. He's dressed as a stereotypical, what they call a mailman. which are individuals that deliver messages from the mafia whenever someone was too busy to deliver them themselves, or if they couldn't go out in public, or something like that. And they go anywhere to deliver messages. They don't speak much. They don't wear very attention-grabbing clothing. And this man pulls up in a mafia car, and he informs Chuya that the boss wants to see him. The mailman before Chuya was tall, with a black hat and sunglasses hiding his face, the poster child for mailmen everywhere. He quietly waited for Chuya's reply without saying any more than he needed to. "Did he mention why he wants to see me?" asked Chuya. "Not exactly." The man wearing the black pork pie hat shook his head. "But you already summoned Piano Man, Albatross, Doc, Lip Man, and Iceman for the same reason. They're awaiting your arrival." "Them too?" Chuya raised an eyebrow. "Ah, right, they mentioned something like that on the phone earlier. Anything else you can tell me?" "Just one thing," the mailman added in a hushed voice. "It has to do with Ada Harbaki." Chuya frowned. After looking at the mailman for a few seconds, he nodded. "All right, let's go." He then made his way to the passenger seat. After slightly adjusting the brim of his hat, the mailman got behind the steering wheel. However, before getting in the car, Chuya randomly decided to take another glance back at the end of the tunnel, and what he saw made him jump. Ah! A shadowy figure was charging toward them. No ordinary person could possibly run that fast. "Chuya, wait!" Adam hadn't slowed down even a little, and his gait gave no indication that he was tired. "Son of a..." Chuya griped as he hopped into the passenger seat. "Go, drive!" Chuya looked back once more as he shut the car door. That was when he heard something rather unpalatable. "Chuya, get out of the car!" Adam shouted as loudly as he could while he sprinted. "That's Verlaine!" Chuya reflexively looked over to the driver's seat. At almost the same moment, the mailman smirked, albeit faintly, and slammed his foot on the gas. The car immediately shot off like a bullet, causing Chuya to slam back into his seat. "Damn it!" "Fasten your seatbelt, otherwise you'll bite your tongue," the mailman calmly instructed. "Stop the car!" Chuya yelled as his right hand reached out to grab the steering wheel with the speed of a swallow. No ordinary person would have even been able to see his hand, but this man was different. He punched Chuya in the jaw before Chuya's hand even touched the steering wheel. Ugh! Chuya's upper body jerked back and the back of his head slammed into the window, leaving numerous white cracks across the glass. "Oops, forgive me," the man said as he continued driving. "You're a lot lighter than I thought you'd be. Are you getting enough to eat? You know I worry about you as your big brother." "You're gonna pay for that, arsehole!" Chuya's face was overcome with rage. He sat back up almost instantaneously, launching his fist at the driver like a bouncing billiard ball in a right hook that used all the muscles in his upper body. The punch had the weight of an iron ball and the deadliness of a guillotine behind it, leagues faster and heavier than when he'd reached for the steering wheel a moment ago. And the driver simply caught Chuya's fist with a single hand as if he were catching a baseball. "What?" "Your punches are light too," the man continued, facing forward, eyes still focused on the road. "You're going to be assassinated within seconds if you keep fighting like this." The man had caught a punch that would have demolished an iron pillar, but a smile was playing on Chuya's lips. "Huh, I guess that means you're pretty heavy, eh?" The man suddenly sank into his seat. "What?" He continued to gradually sink as if he was sitting in a swamp. The leather seat was unable to withstand the extreme weight. The metal painfully shrieked as it bent and warped while various parts of the seat scattered everywhere. A gravitational wave expanded from Chuya's fist until it engulfed the driver. The extreme gravitational pull ripped the sunglasses right off the driver's face, but they didn't bounce off the car floor. Instead, they shattered into hundreds of pieces upon contact. The car body began to creak, gradually losing the battle against the driver's weight, which was over 10 times what it had been mere seconds ago. "Did you really think I was just going to let you assassinate me like that? Hope you like being squished." Chuya didn't weaken his skill, but instead increased the amount of force he was using until the man was 2 times, then 3 times, 4 times, 5 times heavier than he was a second ago. But all of a sudden, Chuya's eyes narrowed dubiously. "What the..." He couldn't increase the weight any further. Chuya unleashed another gravitational wave from his fist, but the flattened driver's seat didn't make a sound, let alone change in the slightest. "Is that it?" the man asked calmly, even though he should have been suffering under the powerful gravitational force. He then squeezed Chuya's fist, causing the impossible to happen. This time, Chuya was the one to suddenly sink into his seat. Glah! The passenger seat beneath him bent in two. The frame snapped and shot out of the cushion. The seat adjuster snapped as well, sending the seats back straight into the rear of the car. Chuya was tightly pressed into the seat, ever so slowly sinking. His entire body was being pushed downward, paralysing his arms and legs. The wires in the seat's frame popped one after another and pierced the vehicle's interior. "I told you, your big brother knows best," the man said, his dark brown eyes narrowing with a smile. Chuya couldn't reply. He could hardly even breathe. The enhanced gravity was crushing his lungs. Still squeezed against the seat, he turned his bewildered gaze to the man. "Listen," the man intoned, one hand on the steering wheel. "I didn't come here to assassinate you. Why would I ever do that? You're my one and only brother, after all." Chia's entire body creaked under the intense pressure. He clenched his jaw and growled, "I don't remember ever having a European brother." "Allow me to correct you then," the driver coldly stated. "Because I'm not European. I'm not even human, just like you." "What? Have you never felt the world was a cruel place?" The man's voice was as sweet as a lullaby, his gaze as dreary as the night sea. "Why am I me? Why are you you? Nobody can tell us that. My goal is the opposite of assassination. I came to save you." "I think I'm good." Chia grinned like a wild animal as he fought against the pressure. "I don't know about you, but I'm human." "You're not." The statement was bone-chilling. "You aren't human. You're 2,383 lines of code." Those words held an unusual weight to them as they echoed through the car. It felt as if a nuclear explosion had gone off in some faraway land. "What the—" An empty sadness filled the man's eyes. "Military researchers tried to artificially remove skill users' special abilities, and they were successful," he explained. "Half successful, at least. Naturally, machines can't control skills. You need a human soul for that. But that also means the human mind limits the output. That's when the researchers came up with an idea. They decided to trick the skill. They made the skill think that there was a human controlling it. The persona models, imitation humans with fake souls, were created for that reason. An extremely simple character string of rules for behavioral principles and a formula for emotions, all created in order to trick the skill. And that particular string was 2,383 lines long. Do you get it, Chia? Your soul is nothing more than 2,383 lines of code some researchers wrote off the top of their heads." "Bullshit," Chia spat, forcing every last bit of air he could out of his throat. "That's impossible." "It's true." "Don't lie to me," he shouted. "I was born in a countryside village by the beach. My friends proved that. I even have a photo to back it up." "False information put out there by the military. That's all it is." Chia used every muscle in his body to fight back, but the gravity grew even stronger and pushed him down again. He could no longer talk, let alone open his mouth. "Sleep well, Chia." The man's voice was terrifyingly kind. "By the time you wake up, you will be in another country on the opposite side of the ocean. And a year from now, you'll be grateful for this moment we had today." Chia tried to argue, but not even that was possible anymore. His blood was pooling from the pressure, and his face was pale. The blood flow to his brain was slowly being cut off. The light in his eyes began fading. "I disagree." Suddenly, an electronic voice came from the car's sound system. "In fact, I believe Chia will be very angry with you, because you are a terrible driver." Out of nowhere, the steering wheel veered left, even though no one was touching it. "What?" The car swerved wildly, rapidly accelerating into the next lane until it drived onto the sidewalk. As the driver let go of Chia to grab the steering wheel, the gravity holding down Chia disappeared and the passenger door simultaneously opened. A hand reached into the car and grabbed the barely conscious boy. That hand belonged to Adam, who pulled Chia out of the car while latched onto the side of the vehicle. He clutched Chia tightly and covered his head before leaping away and rolling onto the ground. The driver of the out-of-control car glanced at Adam. "Oh, look who it is," joked the man as his lips curled into a smirk. "It appears destroying that airplane wasn't enough." Adam met the jeering man's smirk with a cold gaze. And that's how we're introduced to Verlaine. The 2,383 lines of code line is, I see a lot of people who are fans of Bungo Stray Dogs like tote that line around like it's the saddest line in the series. It's not the saddest line in Stormbringer or in Bungo Stray Dogs as a whole. I'm going to tell you what the saddest line in Stormbringer is later. I will reveal to you what that is. Anyway, so Verlaine is very insistent that Chia's not human. He doesn't think Chia's human. Chia wants to be human. He wants to believe that he's human. Chia does not want to accept that he might not be human. So he's not fucking happy with Verlaine. Adam is very dedicated to keeping Chia alive. So big up Adam. Verlaine does continue to harass them as they try to escape. I'm going to read some excerpts as well because Verlaine's mindset is also very important to the story. So I'm going to read some of the things that Verlaine says and some of the interactions they have while trying to run away from Verlaine. Also, if you can hear the fan in the background, ignore that. It's hot. I live in Australia. It's fucking hot. So, upon reflection, humans use the word lonely far too casually. Adam swiftly turned around and saw Verlaine. He was on top of the car with its entire front half piercing the wall. He sat leisurely on the trunk like a king on his throne, his jacket fluttering in the ever-so-gentle breeze. People know nothing about true loneliness. They foolishly believe that loneliness is simply not having a family or anyone to talk to. Adam analysed the situation. Verlaine had thrown the car while he was sitting on it. That was how he managed to catch up with Adam and Chia so quickly. Adam rapidly calculated a few different scenarios, but each one ended in despair. There was no running away from someone who could throw an object and launch himself atop it using gravity. "True loneliness," began Verlaine in an elegant tone reminiscent of a violin solo. "True loneliness is the comet, travelling alone through the universe, surrounded by vacuous space and nothingness at absolute zero. It would never have the chance to be seen by someone or approached by another. The dismal silence would simply continue for eons. Could you even imagine it? No one could. That is, except for you, Chia." Chia placed both hands on the ground to support his unstable body as he tried to stand up. "What are you getting at?" "There's just one thing I want," Verlaine explained with a refreshing gaze. "That's why I'm only going to say it once." The moment Verlaine gently smiled, the dangerous scent that followed him vanished. "Come with me, Chia." Chia didn't reply, neither did Adam. They couldn't even move. There were no bells and whistles to Verlaine's remark. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a simple, transparent suggestion. Or perhaps even an order. "Brother, you are not human. You are nothing more than a string of characters. You are a simple equation without a soul. That is what true loneliness is. No one can save you from your isolated chamber. But what if a desolate, lonely comet had another comet of the same temperature by its side? A comet that was just as lonely." Verlaine spoke as if he were a poet reciting an ancient tale, and his eyes were a waterway of affection, a gaze one would only give to their most treasured kin. "So that's what you want?" Chia stood up. "You came all the way here for that." "This isn't the only time I've come for you. I've been dreaming of setting off on a journey with you ever since I attacked my dear friend to steal you away on that day 9 years ago." Verlaine closed his eyes. The powerful force around him weakened even further. He now looked no different from any ordinary man idly sitting on the roadside. "We can go on an assassination run together as brothers. All we have is a meaningless life. So how about we grant our creators a similar fate? A meaningless death. That should balance things out. A death without discrimination between the good and the wicked. Only then..." Verlaine closed his eyes. He wasn't speaking like some extraordinary assassin. His voice was filled only with sadness, grief, and a faint, naive dream, all appropriate for a young man his age. "Only then will we be able to live with and accept this meaningless life." Verlaine hopped off the car and held out his hand to Chia, who stared at it devoid of all emotion. "You mustn't, Chia," protested Adam with his pistol drawn. "You'll become an enemy of the entire world the moment you take that man's hand." Adam calculated every possible scenario, but his pistol would be useless against Verlaine's skill, no matter how he fired. "Stay out of this." It wasn't Verlaine who spoke, it was Chia. Verlaine's eyes showed a hint of surprise as he looked at the young mafioso. "I understand where you're coming from." Chia tilted his head back slightly and fixed Verlaine with a piercing gaze. "But before I give you my answer, I need to ask something first." "Anything," Verlaine replied, smiling. "I got a call from Piano Man earlier. He said someone from the Port Mafia came to take the 5 of them somewhere for a job. Answer me. What happened to him?" Verlaine's smile disappeared. A few slow moments passed as a different kind of smirk twisted his lips like a black flower blooming. A most unpleasant smile. "Well, you don't need your old friends anymore, do you?" he answered. Verlaine hit the trunk of the car stuck in the wall and it opened. The next moment, something fell out and hit the ground with a sickening splat. Chia instantly recognized it. His pupils narrowed like needles. It was Lippmann's body. "It all boils down to this, Chia. That was a yoke keeping you attached to humans," Verlaine said gently as he held Chia up by his neck. "I understand where you're coming from, but it's too dangerous. You shouldn't linger in that position." Verlaine stuck his free hand in Chia's pocket in search of something. His fingers emitted a gravitational pulse that acted like radar, helping him find what he was looking for. "So this is the picture your so-called friends gave you?" It was the photograph of Chia as a child wearing a yukata by the ocean. "I understand more than you realize how you must have felt when you saw it. And I understand how you trusted the people who gave this to you. Really, I do. But your trust in them will only cause you to suffer because they will continue to feed you these lies. You're human, have hope he's lying to you is what they'd say, poisoning your mind." Verlaine flicked his wrist and threw the photo like a projectile with unbelievable speed until it pierced Adam's shoulder like a knife. Adam groaned in pain, dropping his pistol that he had been waiting for a chance to fire. Why do you think they'd lie to you? Asked Verlaine. He looked straight at Chia, entirely uninterested in whatever Adam was doing. It's because your powers are useful to them. They want to use you. I know because it happened to me too. I don't give a damn. You're gonna pay, Chia rasped, breathing heavily as he hung by his neck, unable to move. Such a troublesome boy, Verlaine sighed. He paused after every few words as if he were talking to a small child. But, well, I figured you wouldn't be so soft that a mere few words would convince you. That's why I'm going to use my actions instead. I am going to cut the strings one by one that manipulate you like a marionette. And then you will be free. This is the greatest gift of brotherly love and the only thing that will bring you happiness. Then he added, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, I am going to kill every human who matters to you. There was nothing but elegance and kindness in his voice, yet in his eyes a fire was burning. They held the pale blue flames of Hell's gatekeeper, capable of freezing the souls of all humankind before scorching them into ash. You're wrong, Adam suddenly chimed in. What you are doing is not love. According to the definition of human emotion I have installed, what you have is a lust for domination. And how's that any different? Verlaine asked, smiling sweetly. Numerous emotions appeared in Chia's eyes as they talked. Surprise, trepidation, bewilderment, fear. But they were only brief flashes that ended up swallowed by an overpowering fire, the flames of rage. I won't let you! Chia's throat shook like the rumbling of the earth. I'm not going to let you have your way no matter what! Verlaine gave a refreshed smile. He acknowledged and accepted those feelings. That's fine. There was even a note of affection and tenderness about him. You need time to choose, ruminate, and come to terms with reality, but you will do as I say in the end. Allow me to show you why. The unusual sensation started the moment Verlaine gently placed his free hand on Chia's neck. So then Verlaine shows Chia a vision of just a desecrated city. Everything's fucking destroyed, everything's on fire, whatever, and then Chia's in the middle, he's in pain, he's suffering, and it all fucking sucks. And then Dazai fucking rocks up out of nowhere. Dazai inserts himself into the situation. He saves Chia, and he brings him back to the pool hall that Chia and Piano Man and his buddies were all hanging out at. And I'm going to read to you what happens there. I swear to God, I'm not going to be doing this much reading of it for the rest of the book. This is just, important to set the context. I swear to God. Meaningless images flooded his vision. There was the first time he met with Piano Man and the others at that pool hall. They played pool until the next morning to see who could win the most rounds, fighting over the most trivial of things while throwing champagne bottles at each other. Chia himself had forgotten this memory. It was hard to even know if their laughter was real. The memories faintly overlapped with the young man carrying him on his back until the young man eventually dumped him on the ground and walked away. It was Dazai's dark figure. Chia tried calling out to him, straining his voice until he finally regained consciousness. He was lying in front of that pool hall. Old world. He was no longer focused on Dazai but on the inside of the hall. The undeniable stench of blood filled the air. Chia staggered to his feet. He tried to walk but his legs wouldn't listen and he clumsily fell to the ground. He crawled forward into the building. Piano Man, Iceman, Albatross, Doc. They were all dead. The inside of the pool hall was in ruins as if a tornado had swept by. The windows were shattered, a pool table was stuck in the wall, and broken bottles of alcohol colourfully littered the floor. It was the result of a gravity-manipulating skill ravaging the inside of the building. 4 bodies were laying in the centre. A quick glance was enough to know there was no saving them. Broken was a more fitting description than killed. It would have been more difficult to find a part of them that wasn't in pieces. Chia! A voice as thin as a string startled Chia, and he rushed over in its direction. Are you okay? He yelled. The voice was coming from Albatross. Blood trickled out of his mouth. I'm going to save you, hold on! It was evident that there was no saving him, even without getting closer for a better look. His abdomen was torn open, exposing his ribcage. I'm sorry, Chia. He got me. I can't see. I can't even feel my legs anymore. Albatross gurgled in a whisper. His eyes were no longer seeing the world of the living. His legs were crushed from the knees down as well. But I saved Doc. I grabbed him by the collar and pulled him out of the attack's way, said Albatross. Everyone else is dead, and I'm gonna die too. But Doc, he needs your help. Albatross's right hand was clutching onto Doc's collar like a treasure he held dear. Doc's eyes were closed as if he was sleeping, and he didn't have a scratch on his body. His upper body, that is. There was nothing left of Doc from the waist down. Chia groaned and clenched his jaw tight. He had to consciously fight the urge to scream. "All right," Chia replied evenly, keeping his emotions at bay. "I'll take care of Doc. He's gonna be okay thanks to you. You always were amazing like that. You should be proud."
"Thank goodness."
Albatross let out a deep sigh of relief, and the stress vanished from his face.
"Chia, there's a motorcycle in the garage. I used it for work. It's my prized possession. Feel free to use it."
Albatross's tensed hand went limp and dropped to the floor. Albatross, Doc, Piano Man, Iceman, and Lip Man were all dead. Chia lowered his gaze and didn't say a word for a few moments. After standing back up, he walked around his comrades' bodies as if to take in each of their faces. There was no telling how much time went by when he suddenly heard footsteps at the entrance. "Chia." It was Adam, scorched from head to toe. He was missing an eye, and functional fluid leaked from his body, but he was still walking on his own 2 feet. "Tell me, Tin Man," Chia suddenly stated, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Why did they die?" "That is because Verlaine killed them."
"Then why did he kill them?"
Chia's tone gradually sharpened like a gemstone on the verge of cracking. "I believe verbalizing the reason would be meaningless."
"Answer me!"
shouted Chia, still staring at the floor.
"You're a machine, aren't you? Then give me a perfect, objective answer!"
Adam remained silent for a few seconds with a blank look on his face, much like how a human being would hesitate. However, he eventually replied, "Because of you, Chia." His voice was monotonous. "This happened because you decided to stay with the Mafia. Verlaine believed these 5 men were the reason why you wished to stay, so he killed them, and he will most likely continue to kill for the same reason." Silence. "Yeah, it is my fault," Chia suddenly said before turning around and looking at Adam. Chia's eyes were vacant, hollow. "All right, Tin Man. I'll help you with your job." He began walking, 1 step at a time. His feet struck the floor slowly. "I'm going to find him, but I won't let you arrest him. I'm going to kill the man myself." He then spoke in a different, unusual voice. It wasn't even of this world. It was a pitch-black mantra that burst out from the depths of hell, a foreboding declaration that could never be taken back.
"You murder someone's family, the Mafia's gonna make you pay!"
The only scene you really get with the flags before Verlaine kills them is the one in the pool hall with Chia, where it is established that they're dangerous. The flags are organised criminals working for the Mafia, many of whom have killed a lot of people in violent, brutal, horrible ways. A lot of them, in general, come off as creepy or unnerving or disturbing or weird or just off-putting in general. But these same people who experiment with poisons, who behead people with piano strings, who break into a person's home to brutally murder them, who steal, who appear publicly to lie to everyone. It's these same people who put their necks on the line to get into confidential Port Mafia documentation, which they could have been killed for. They could have been tortured to death for it. They still went out of their way to do that, risking themselves in the process so that they could get this photo for Chia, because it matters to him. They don't care. They don't care about the Ada Habaki incident. They don't care about the medical experimentation. They don't care about whatever happened in Suribachi. They don't care. It doesn't mean anything to them. They get nothing out of this, but it matters to Chia. Chia is the one who lies awake at night wondering if he's a human being or not. Chia is the one, even though he won't talk about it, Chia is the one who worries about it, who is concerned, who really cares about whether or not he's human. And they care about him enough to risk themselves just so they can get him a little photo that will make him feel a little better about whether or not he's human. And the very next scene that we see them in, they're killed. They're dead. It comes very abruptly. It comes very out of nowhere. Because before this point, we're not given any indication within the story that the flags are dead or that they're going to die. They're introduced the same way that any other character would be introduced. Before Verlaine reveals that he's killed them and that he plans on killing everyone Chuya cares about, you're not given any indication that the flags are dead or that they're going to die. And it comes very suddenly. When you're writing a story, in narrative writing, you're not generally meant to introduce a character just to immediately kill them off. It's bad writing in general, and it doesn't really give the audience time to connect with the character and to really care. If the character's first scene is their introduction and their second scene is their death, there's not really much time for the audience to really attach themselves to the character, and so they're not going to care that the character's dead. But in the Flags case, I think this was done quite well. Because generally people don't introduce a character just to immediately kill them off, you're not expecting that the Flags are going to be killed, and there's not any indication given that they are going to be killed up until Verlaine reveals that he's killed them. And it comes as very sudden and abrupt and shocking. And that's what death is like in real life when someone you care about dies. It feels out of nowhere. Even if you're expecting it, even if it's, for example, an elderly person who's been dying for a long time, it still feels sudden. And it still feels like it shouldn't happen. And I think killing the Flags off that early really added to that sense that this shouldn't have happened. This is surprising. This is shocking. This is awful. And because that first scene with the Flags was so well crafted, where it showed their brutality first and then showed their kindness, it did give the audience enough of a chance to connect with the characters, to care about them, to like them, before they were killed off. And the Flag's death haunts Stormbringer for the rest of the book. For the rest of the book's duration, there are 5 empty spaces around Chuya where people should be, but there is no one to fill them because those spaces were for Chuya's friends, and Chuya's friends have been killed. And you don't think about it very much while reading the book, but those empty spaces stand out. They're noticeable because they shouldn't be empty. Chuya goes along with Adam after this, quite begrudgingly because he finds Adam annoying. The story switches between third person and first person perspective. First person is from Adam's point of view, and then third person usually follows more closely with Chuya. Adam and Chuya Chuya generally seems to find Adam quite irritating, which is fair because he can be quite annoying sometimes, if we're going to be real. But they do go along with each other. Adam does try his very best to help Chuya. I will read some more excerpts that I think are relevant to Chuya and Adam's character dynamic. Adam's pretty funny as well. Adam does provide a good sense of comedic relief. I wouldn't say comedic relief, actually. He kind of lightens the tone a little bit sometimes, which I find... I don't think... Personally, I like it, because the overall tone of Stormbringer is fucking, like, just soul-crushing. And I think Adam bringing more lighthearted tones to some segments, I think that's good. Because, you know, the bad parts always hurt more when there's good parts to remember, you know? So I'm going to read a couple of excerpts that I think are relevant to Chuya and Adam's character dynamic. Because that also is a really important part of Stormbringer's narrative. Chuya strode briskly through an alleyway and I followed, matching his pace. After a 10-minute walk from the church, Chuya turned around. Let's get one thing straight, Tin Man. I don't like you. I'm fine with letting you tag along because you got a lot of useful functions, but in return, you're going to need to follow my every command. You need to prioritise my orders even over the ones you got from your detective headquarters or whatever it's called. Otherwise, I'm not going with you. You're asking me to override the current authority to command? Yep. I considered the situation logically. The highest in command was the investigation team, followed by Dr. Wollstonecraft. If I made Chuya the highest in command and overwrote the investigation team's current position, that could possibly cancel out the purpose of my existence, which was to prioritise the mission. But if I didn't follow Chuya's orders, then I would not be able to continue said mission. The situation was highly contradictory. It was as if someone in charge said, I order you not to follow my orders. The average AI would cease to function due to the infinite loop of resources necessary to compute the contradiction. I, on the other hand, am the latest model of AI. The doctor predicted something like this might happen and integrated a subroutine within me to help me solve contradicting orders. The solution was extremely simple. Follow your heart. Order acknowledged, I will now override the line of command protocol. After getting down on one knee, I respectfully bowed my head. I have reset the line of command with Master Chuya at the highest ranking. Your wish is my command.
He looked at me, flabbergasted. You sure? He asked. I am. I'm determined that you would never order me to do anything unwise. His eyes opened wide for a few moments before he placed a hand over his face and heaved an exaggerated sigh. Am I being tested by a damn machine? Because that's what it sounds like. And Master, seriously. I am programmed to call the highest in command Master by default. You can't change it? I can, but doing so would remove you from highest in command. Is that okay? What? No, of course not. Master Chuya grimaced. Oh, whatever. We're wasting our time. Just tell me what you learned. You have info on Verlaine, right? Yes, allow me to explain. But before that, would you like a piece of gum? I stood up and took out the gum from earlier. I decided that a light meal could relieve some of his stress before my long explanation. Master Chuya looked at the gum, then at me, then at the gum once more. No, he eventually replied, with a bewildered gaze. That was unfortunate. Very well. After unwrapping the gum, I tossed it into my mouth, chewed it a few times, and swallowed. Fuck. I forgot he did that. Delicious. He stared at me as if he found the sight peculiar. Now, allow me to explain, I began. I will start from the beginning. Verlaine is an assassin, so he wouldn't have gone on a killing spree at the airport to force his way into this country. That would make it harder for him to move around freely once he was inside. He likely used a fake passport and a disguise just like any other criminal. Verlaine, however, is a lone wolf. He does not work with anyone. He doesn't have anyone he trusts who could have made him a passport or provided some way for him to enter the country. In other words, he needed to pay a smuggler to sneak him in. So far, so good? I consumed another piece of gum. Ugh. Master Chuya groaned weakly. Perhaps he had a stomachache. However, the number of smugglers he could have used this time is extremely small, because for the most part, criminals, the brains of operations, are usually cowards who value horizontal relationships with their peers. In other words, most smugglers here either work under the protection of the Port Mafia, or at the very least have some sort of mutually beneficial connection with them. Yeah, you got a point. I guess that means Verlaine couldn't use anyone who might betray him and rat him out to the Mafia, agreed Master Chuya. You sure understand a lot about what goes on around here. Well, machines do make far better investigators than humans, I replied after swallowing another piece of gum. Then I compared the Japanese police force's list of smugglers with the list of smugglers who work under the Port Mafia and cross-checked until I found several people who were not in the Mafia's database. The Mafia's and police's lists? How'd you get your hands on those? I hacked into their databases, I replied. I could even hack into a moving car's GPS if I wanted. Browsing a database was easier than breathing to me. I had never breathed before, so I was only guessing though. There were 4 possible smugglers. I went down the list and started investigating them this morning, until I found the one who snuck Verlaine into the country. Looks like you're good at more than just pool. What a relief. Master Chuya raised his eyebrows. So, what'd you do? Hang him upside down and strangle the information out of him? No, I do not possess such functions. Hurting the smuggler would only draw Verlaine's attention. I shook my head. Instead, I used the smuggler's pay statements to uncover what exactly Verlaine ordered from him. I imagine you must know that these sorts of smugglers usually deliver supplies as well, I explained while finishing off the second to last piece of gum. These criminals provide hideouts, cars, guns, and even underground doctors for a price. Verlaine paid this particular individual for 3 separate items. Like a hideout? Unfortunately not. They do determine eventually that Verlaine is probably going to kill about 3 other people that Chuya is close with. And so the first guess is his buddy Shirase. Shirase? I'm going to assume it's Shirase. Whatever, it doesn't... I need... Anyway, I need to fucking keep talking. Because before Chuya joined the Mafia, he was in this fucking little organisation called the Sheep, which was literally just a bunch of fucking orphan children living on the streets and hoping for the best. And Shirase betrayed Chuya and tried to stab him in the back, quite literally. And then Chuya joined the Mafia because the Sheep didn't fucking want him anymore. It's a long story, it's not really fucking... Well, it is relevant, but whatever, it doesn't matter. So they go to find Shirase, who immediately tries to throw a vase at Chuya. He's also present for, like, the rest of the book, because he tags along with them. He's kind of he's not really very important to the themes of the story, though, or the fucking plot in general. So now the excerpts I read that I think are relevant to the character dynamics, they're probably going to include Shirase, so we're going to... That's why he's important to mention. We followed Shirase down the corridor as he left. Shirase, good sir, please wait, we need your help. Gee, sounds rough. Not my problem, though. You could offer me all the money in the world and I still wouldn't help Chuya. Shirase's pace did not slow down. But helping us would be the rational thing to do. Who the hell are you, anyway? You really know how to piss someone off, huh? Do you even know what Chuya did to us? Shirase turned around and shot me a threatening glare, but his gaze meant nothing to me since I cannot feel threatened. I could, however, comprehend the emotion he felt based on his facial expression. Hatred. He destroyed our group 1 year ago. He had the Port Mafia attack us and we ended up losing our home. Then we were scattered all over the country to keep us from regrouping ever again. All of us but Chia, that is. And you know what he did then? The bastard joined the Port Mafia. He sold us out. We took him in when he had nowhere to go, and this is how he repays us. I cross-referenced Shirash's story with the logs in my database, but they did not match. The facts told a different story. He needed to be corrected, but Master Chia did not say a word. He seemed to have no interest in discussing the matter. And this is where I got sent to. Me and no one else. I had to stay in Yokohama, where they forced me to work and watch my every move. You know what this is, Chia? Shirashi held out his arm and showed his wristwatch. Beats me, Master Chia replied. That is a luxury watch from Switzerland, I said upon referencing my knowledge database. Yep, it's the only luxury item I still have too. I was able to buy stuff like this every month when I was in the sheep, but now, I don't know when exactly, but I'm going to have to sell this thing someday. Anyone could do the kind of menial work I'm doing, which is why the pay's such dirt. I'm not going to be able to raise enough capital to rebuild the organisation like this. Rebuild the organisation? Master Chia's expression changed. You really think I'm going to keep working at this shithole for the rest of my life? I'm slowly buying weapons and getting things ready. I'll be able to do it. I'm going to bring back the sheep and become an even better king than you ever were. Master Chia frowned slightly. In your dreams. What'd you just say? Come now, let's all calm down. I had no choice but to speak up, since we still had not even discussed why we came here. Humans tend to engage in petty arguments, even when they should clearly be prioritizing something else. Shirase, sir, there seems to be a misunderstanding. According to my memory database, Master Chia... Stop. Don't say another word. Master Chia suddenly grabbed me and stopped me. Listen, Shirase, there's only one thing you need to know. You're going to die if something isn't done. Today or maybe even tomorrow. What? Shirase gasped. There's a hitman after you, a monster named Verlaine. I'm going to kill him, and you're going to help me do that. What? Why would a hitman be... Shirase looked utterly confused. He seemed to have no idea what was going on. Why me? Because he thinks I'll have no reason to stay in the Mafia once you're dead. The hell? Why would he think that? Don't ask me to explain a crazy man's logic. Master Chia sounded like he was trying to avoid a debate. Anyway, he's strong. Even if the entire Mafia went against him, they'd basically get wiped out. That's why I'm going to set up a trap to kill him. I'm going to sneak up from behind and take him out when he comes for you. It doesn't matter how powerful his skill is if I catch him off guard and get a clean shot. Kind of like what you did to me a year ago when you stabbed me in the back. Master Chia's gaze sharpened, and then his eyes narrowed with a different emotion. However, my emotion mimicry model was unable to determine what this really was. Wait, let me get this straight. An irritated Shirase stammered as he waved his hands. There's a hitman named Verlaine, and you guys can't beat him, so you're going to use me as bait to lure him out. Basically, you're asking me to wait in the middle of this trap and not run away despite knowing he's coming to kill me. Did I get you right? Master Chia frowned without saying a word. It appeared that it was my duty to answer the question for him. Yes, that is exactly what you need to do. Then hell no, I'm not doing that. What kind of idiot would willingly be murder bait? Yeah, I figured you'd say that. But you don't have a choice, Master Chia replied sharply. What? You're bait, but so what? We don't need you. There's two others he's going to go after as well, so we could just use them instead. Only difference is if you don't cooperate with us, you're going to die. That's why you don't have a choice, Shirase. You do this or you're dead, shouted Master Chia as if to shut down Shirase's rejection. They glared at each other without another word. Perhaps they were searching for something on the other's face. It was Shirase who eventually ended the silence. Fine, whatever, he griped before turning his back to us and walking away. Still playing king, I see. Good old Chia. So then they get arrested, because Shirase is really clever, and he got busted for the illegal weapons that he was owning. I don't know why he would tell that to a Europol detective. He's not very clever. They do also just happen to be arrested by a detective that Chia is quite familiar with. They're not like besties, but they're on good terms, because the detective was nice to Chia when Chia was a fucking like homeless orphan, you know, that kind of thing. So then they get arrested there, and they put in the fucking interrogation room because Shirase is really clever and got busted for illegal weapons possession. As a side note, I'm only going to do Adam's voice when he's actually speaking out loud, because doing his voice hurts my throat. Or the voice that I picked for him, and also that will make it easier to tell what he's actually saying out loud and what he's fucking narrating. Master Chia, what? It is your turn. We're playing the Name Strange Human Traits game. He did not respond. Then allow me to go first. I tapped the table a few times. Humans are strange because they become embarrassed when their bodies make sounds other than their own voices. Burps, farts, etc. It is truly bizarre. Anyway, your turn. I tapped the table twice for Master Chia, and he looked at me. He sighed. A strange way to respond. I see. Thank you for your input. I suppose it is my turn again. When the average woman mentions how cute another woman is, in most cases, the woman in question is not cute. Their reasoning for doing this is unknown. When they talk about other women who are actually cute, they say she's a piece of work. Tap, tap. Your turn again, Master Chiyo. Ugh. He let out a lethargic groan. Fascinating, thank you for your reply. Now for my turn. Men always lift the toilet seat when using the restroom. It is a mysterious protocol. Women, however, do not do this. Furthermore, why do men always remain standing? Sitting down is far more convenient and prevents any messes. Specifically, Shut up! You're disgusting! Master Chiyo shouted. I curiously tilted my head. Disgusting? I thoroughly cleaned myself 92 minutes ago. That's not what I meant! He scratched his head. Oh, just get me out of here already, damn it! We were in the city police's interrogation room. The moss green walls were stained with cigarette smoke and dust. The screws in each of our chairs' legs were loose, which caused them to rattle and wobble with even the slightest movement. The desk was covered in scratches, the imprint of someone's fist, and light water damage, most likely from a suspect's tears. After voluntarily accompanying the police to the station, Master Chiyo and I were brought to this room and told to wait. While we could escape, leaving without filing the proper paperwork would lead to more trouble later. Therefore, it was perhaps in our best interest to wait for the Port Mafia's lawyer to arrive. Additionally, being detained as an investigator turned out to be an extremely valuable and exhilarating experience for me. I was glad I hid my true identity. Thank goodness for our investigation policies. I prohibit you from ever asking me to play that game again. Got it? Is that an order? You bet your ass it is. There was nothing I could do about it since he used his authoritative powers. Very well, I will never play Name Strange Human Truth with you again. Master Chiyo looked exhausted as he stared at me. I've never seen you so disappointed. There were no mirrors in the room. I could not check how I looked. A large man in a police uniform entered the room without making a sound and grabbed my arm. I was right about to protest when I saw out of the corner of my eye Master Chiyo give me a signal. He was bending his index finger towards the door from under the desk. Then he looked at me and faintly pointed his chin at the door. It was clearly a non-verbal signal. He was trying to tell me something that he did not want the others to hear. Perhaps that was why he made up that story to get me to leave. Then there was only one thing for me to do. Very well, I will be waiting outside. I respectfully bowed before retiring from the interrogation room with the uniformed officer. Once the door closed behind me, the officer and I started walking. Excuse me, officer, I began after we'd taken around 10 steps. What do you think it means when someone bends their finger towards the door twice? What? The officer cocked his head curiously. I mean a gesture where you bend your finger like this while pointing at the door, I repeated as I pondered the situation. Master Chiyo was indirectly telling me to leave because there was something he wanted me to do out here, as he himself was unable to leave the interrogation room. What we needed to do first and foremost was get Shirase out of this station, since he might be assassinated before we even got a chance to move him somewhere safely and set up the trap. However, the city police already knew we were trying to take him somewhere. That was why they were keeping Master Chiyo in the interrogation room and... well, I understand now. The officer glared suspiciously at me after my sudden announcement. And what exactly do you understand? That gesture was an order. Master Chiyo was trying to tell me to sneak into Shirase's cell and save him while he distracted the other officers. Oh, sneak into his cell, huh? The officer nodded. Sneak into his cell. Oops, it appeared that he was onto me. This was not ideal. Officer, look over there. I pointed towards the area behind the officer and he instinctively looked in that direction. He was good at following orders. I then took my already pointed index finger and placed it right where his cheek was a moment ago. I don't see anything. He turned his head back around and was about to finish his sentence when his cheek squished right into my finger. A direct hit. My fingertips contained microscopic needles coated with a sedative. They pierced his skin and caused him to lose consciousness. I caught him with both arms before he collapsed to the floor, then scanned my surroundings. It appeared no one saw or heard a thing. We must remain quiet. This is a police station. I smiled as I held him up. While they're at the police station, Verlaine attacks them again, and there is an exchange that is quite relevant to the story that I'm going to read out now. Now, Shirase. After burying me alive, Verlaine turned around and faced Shirase instead, as if he no longer had any interest in me. What the? Shirase's voice trembled with fear. I came here to see you, but it was so easy that I actually got here a little too early. So let's talk for a moment before I finish my business. What the hell? What the hell are you? Shirase's voice quavered like never before. It took everything he had to simply stand on his own 2 feet. I'm not Shirase, you've got the wrong guy. Then why did you respond when I called you that name a few seconds ago? Verlaine curiously tilted his head to the side. His long legs strode slowly, gracefully as he approached Shirase. I shouted a warning. I will not allow you to get any closer to him. Verlaine turned around in an amused manner. Then stop me. That is, if you can. His assumption was correct. I would stop him, if I could. I calculated various situations. Escaping, self-destructing, remote communication, etc. I searched every method available, but I ended up with 0 results. There were no effective measures. There was no way out of this. I even considered calling Master Chiyo, but that would be the most foolish strategy of all. We had decided to ambush Verlaine because we knew that we wouldn't be able to defeat him in a fight head-on. The worst thing that could happen right now would be losing Master Chuya or me, and being unable to follow with our plan to ambush Verlaine. He had 2 more targets remaining. There was still hope. "Come, have a seat," Verlaine demanded, but Shirase was too frightened to respond. He simply looked up at Verlaine and trembled. "Sit!" Verlaine repeated sharply. Right as he placed a hand on Shirase's shoulder, Shirase stumbled, and his knees gave out from under him. The ground beneath Verlaine's feet simultaneously cracked from the intense gravity, then heaved and bulged like a tumour. Shirase's rear dropped right on top of the protrusion. He was too astonished and afraid to even yell out. "Shirase, I did a little research on you. As a matter of courtesy as an assassin, of course." Verlaine's demeanour became very civil. "And out of everyone in this city, you have known Chuya the longest. Which is why I want to ask you this. What was Chuya like as a child?" Verlaine effortlessly pulled off the door to a cell as casually as one would pull off an old scab. He then bent the door in half and placed it on the ground, taking a seat on it and elegantly crossing his legs. He smiled at Shirase. Verlaine's skill was an aberration. It was highly doubtful any skilled user in this city could do anything about him, especially after how easily he handled the Order of the Clock Tower's knights. I typed an internal note and sent it to Master Chi's cell phone as a text message. I explained the situation, strongly warned him that there was only one thing he could do: stay away from here. I told him he needed to retreat, calculate his next objective, and get the Mafia's help to lay out the trap, even if that meant Shirase and I would meet our demise. Shirase was shaking. Perhaps he reached the same understanding as I did. He managed to open his quivering mouth and replied, I... His breathing was shallow and his voice sounded fragile enough to break at any moment. It would be no surprise if he vomited right then and there. But if he didn't keep talking, he would be deemed worthless and killed on the spot. Shirase had no choice but to answer the question if he wanted to live even a second longer. It was difficult to watch.
I think we first met under a bridge, where me and the sheep used to hide and drink booze,
he began while glancing at me for help. His eyes were asking me if I could find a way out of this while he bought me some time, but it was hopeless. Help was not coming. I knew buying time would not change a thing.
He, Chuya, was wearing a military uniform I think he stole from somewhere. He was a huge mess. His face and hair were filthy. He wasn't wearing any shoes either, Shirase continued, voice quavering. We, the sheep's original members, thought he was some orphan living on the streets. He spoke to us first. What's that square thing, is what he said.
Shirase looked at the ground as if he was desperately trying to remember every detail that happened that day.
I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought he was just weird. That's when he said, tell me what that square thing is in your hand right now.
Shirase lifted his gaze and idly stared into the distance.
I was holding a slice of bread.
A deep silence reigned over the corridor, eerily so, especially after the destruction that preceded it. Verlaine quietly listened to the story.
When I told him it was bread, he asked, can you eat it? Then when I went, yeah, and tore off a piece and ate it to show him, he did the last thing I was expecting him to do. He fainted like he was out of batteries. It wasn't until I went over to check up on him that I noticed how skinny he was. He looked half dead. The others were weirded out and didn't want anything to do with him, but I gave him bread and some water. After convincing the group, I took him with me to the sheep hideout in the sewers.
I opened my external memory database. According to my records, the sheep were originally a mutual aid organisation that protected orphans from adults. Their infrastructure was much smaller at the time of Shirase's story compared to their eventual peak, and they were more like a shelter for children who wanted to protect themselves from violence or kidnappers, threats of child labour, etc.
We were a pretty small group back then, us sheep, but we eventually were able to welcome Chi in. We couldn't just turn our backs on a starving kid.
Shirase looked up once more, but there was a change. He was still scared, still trembling. However, there was a cold fire burning in his eyes that was not there before. The flames of a freezing rage of a herbivore as it howled at its enemy before being eaten alive.
You're Chia's brother, right?
Asked Shirase in what was practically a scream.
So why do you want to kill me? We were the only ones back then who saved kids like him from starving to death, and this is the thanks I get?
Verlaine quietly stared at him without giving an answer.
Yeah, I know. This is just how the world works. Life's not fair. It's irrational, and I'm gonna die because I helped someone.
Shirase kept ranting.
Whatever, just get it over with before I piss myself and make my corpse smell worse than it already will.
After briefly closing his eyes, Verlaine slowly opened them and got out of his seat. He walked over to Shirase. My situation assessment program calculated 168 different outcomes, and each one of them ended with Shirase's death within the next 10 seconds. It was inevitable. The least I could do was see him off until the very end. Verlaine placed a hand around Shirase's neck, and Shirase stopped breathing.
That was when my real-time scanner picked up a change in the distance. The 169th outcome. An unthinkable possibility. Unbelievable, I instinctively muttered. Master Chia's kick knocked Verlaine straight back. Verlaine's tall body immediately crashed into the wall before ricocheting and hitting the opposite wall, destroying it in the process. He continued ricocheting off the walls like billiard balls until he slammed into the end of the corridor and stopped. Then he slowly fell forward as if he were being peeled off the wall until he collapsed to the ground, his palms out. Master Chia immediately stood in front of Shirase as if to protect him and glared at Verlaine. Chia! Shirase shouted incredulously. Damn it, Shirase, how many times is this now? Master Chia spat bitterly. Every time you cause a problem, I gotta come clean up your mess. I'm not your damn babysitter, you know. Chia, why'd you come here to save me? Saviour? I ain't here to save you. I came here to kick that guy's ass. I ran a diagnostic status test as I shouted, Master Chia, coming here was a mistake. You must escape. You cannot defeat him if you fight him head on like this. Oh, hey, Tin Man. You really look like you're right at home in that wall over there. Anyway, just shut up and watch. Master Chia smirked before facing Verlaine once more. After managing to stand back up, Verlaine bent over and picked up his hat off the floor. You're late, my dear brother, he commented while wiping the dust off his hat. I'm not usually the kind of guy who gets mad when someone means well, but hearing you call me brother makes me sick. Means well? I quietly wondered what he meant by that. You can feel as sick as you'd like. You have that right. Verlaine began to leisurely approach Master Chia. But I can't say I'm a fan of your lack of strategy. What you did was foolish. Did you already forget how easily I made a fool of you just the other day? Yep. Master Chia casually strolled towards his opponent. How about you jog my memory? It wasn't long until they were face to face, within arm's reach of each other. Master Chia looked up at Verlaine. Verlaine looked down at him. The silence lasted only a split second. Verlaine threw the first punch. His right hook sliced through the air with extraordinary speed as if it were drawn into Master Chia's head, but Master Chia turned his face and dodged it. The next moment he struck Verlaine's chin. Verlaine's head jerked to the side. Not even my built-in high-speed camera was able to keep up with what happened. Only after I ran a playback analysis did I understand. When Master Chia dodged Verlaine's punch, he swung his lower body and hit Verlaine's chin with a lightning-fast high kick. It was a perfect strike from his opponent's blind spot that would have taken any ordinary human's head clean off.
Chia does end up saving Shirase, and the detective ends up being the one that Verlaine kills. Verlaine continues to hunt Chia down and continues insisting that he and Chia aren't human. They're not going to ever feel the same kind of belonging and sense of community that human beings can feel. They're never going to fit with other people. They're never going to experience the same kind of companionship and friendship. They are utterly alone, except for each other, because they're not human. And Chia rejects this. Chia firmly believes that Chia wants to believe that he is human. Chia does not want to accept the possibility that he is not human. And he eventually finds out. They go and talk to a scientist, and Chia finds out that the original Chia was cloned. And there is a chance that Chia, as he is now himself, he's the clone. There is a chance that he is the clone, that the photo of him as a child was of the original Chia, who died, and that Chia himself is just a clone of a kid that never grew up. And this is devastating to him. Chia is horrified at the thought that he might be a clone, that he might not be the original Chia. And throughout this story, it's those three characters. It's Verlaine, Chia, and Adam. Verlaine, who doesn't believe himself to be human, and who thinks that no one is ever going to care for him, that he's never going to be loved in the way that a human can be loved, that he's never going to be able to connect with someone, that he's never going to feel that kind of community, that sense of belonging. And he's in pain because of it. And he thinks, he has convinced himself that Chia is like him. Chia's not human. And Chia is the only way he can obtain that sense of belonging, that sense of being cared for. He thinks that Chia is the only person who can give that to him because they're both not human. And that's why he insists that Chia is his brother, that he's going to save Chia, that everyone else is lying to him about him being a person, that they just want to use him, they're tricking him. And then you have Adam, who is not human. He's a robot. He's aware of the lines of code that make up who he is, and he's fine with that. Adam isn't bothered by his lack of humanity. Throughout the entire book, in fact, he keeps reiterating that his dream is to one day open a detective agency entirely staffed by robots, just like him. Because he thinks that robots are better than people. They're more logical. They're more intelligent. They're more practical. Adam isn't bothered by his lack of humanity. Adam doesn't care if he never feels that sense of belonging among human beings. Adam is completely at peace with who he is and what he is. And Chuya, in the middle of it, isn't sure if he's human or not. And he wants so badly to be human because in his mind, not being human is a nightmare. It's the worst scenario he can think of. He wants so badly to be human. And the idea that he might not be human, that he might be a clone, that he might just be a copy of a kid that died in the process of creating him, he finds that horrifying. And Adam, despite not being human, doesn't seem to be insulted. He doesn't seem to be bothered by the fact that Chuya thinks that being like Adam is the worst thing that could happen to him. Because Adam himself isn't human. But Adam is still Verlaine might not be human, and he thinks it's the worst. He thinks it is the worst thing that can happen. He thinks that not being born human, that being created by someone else, being an artificial man-made construction meant to look like a human, Verlaine thinks that this is the worst fate anyone can have. He thinks that he's been condemned to an eternity of isolation and pain because of it. And Adam is in the same position, but he doesn't view it like that. He's happy with what he is. He doesn't care. He still connects with Chuya. He still is capable of maintaining friendships with people. He's still capable of making friends. He still feels things. Not in the same way that humans do, but he does feel things in a way. And he unquestioningly devotes himself to helping Chuya, to keeping Chuya alive. He devotes himself to helping Chuya figure out whether he's human or not, because it matters to Chuya. And if it matters to Chuya, then it matters to Adam, because he cares about Chuya. And throughout the book, Adam repeatedly brings up his dream, his goal of one day starting a detective agency made up entirely of robots. Because Adam doesn't think that being inhuman is a bad thing. It doesn't matter to him. It's okay not to be human in Adam's eyes. Adam sees nothing wrong with it, even though Verlaine views it as a torture.
There's a scene towards the end of the book where Adam and Chuya fight Verlaine because Verlaine has been consumed by his own rage, his own hate, his own bitterness and his own envy and the pain that he feels over his own perceived inhumanity. It's consumed him. He's so bitter, he's so miserable, and he's in pain because he thinks that he's never going to be able to have the kind of connection that a person can have with another person. He doesn't think that he's ever going to be able to be part of the human society that he sees all around him, and that hurts him, and that it makes him angry because he sees it as he's an artificial husk of what looks like a human but isn't, that was made only to suffer. And he's angry that he was brought into this world in that situation. He's angry that people made him that way. He's angry that he can't be part of them. And the hate and the bitterness and the pain, the anger, it's consumed him. And he wants to destroy everything. He wants to make everyone see the kind of power and the rage that something not human can have, that something that is not born with God's love can have. And so he's used his ability to create a kind of black hole sort of gravitational like vortex that he wants to destroy everything with. And Adam and Chuya are caught in that vortex. Adam, being an android, he has a kind of sort of like grappling hook mechanism in one of his hands, so he is able to shoot it far enough that it will reach out of the gravitational vortex, but the rope isn't strong enough to pull both him and Chuya out of it. So the only way that either of them will be able to get out is if Adam detaches himself from the rope and sacrifices himself to save Chuya.
And Chia begs him not to. Chia doesn't want him to do that, because as much as Adam is annoying and kind of weird, and as much as he's always prattling on about how AI and robots and androids are so much better and more logical than people, he's still Chia's friend. Chia says to him, "What happened to your dream? I thought you were going to make an all-android detective agency." And Adam says, "My dream is to protect humans, and that dream is about to come true. I get to protect you. I couldn't ask for more." And then he sacrifices himself to save Chia.
The most gut-wrenching line in Stormbringer is not the 2,383 lines of code one. It's the one that Adam says in that scene. Because he, throughout the book, he brings up repeatedly that his dream is to start an all-android detective agency. He mentions it several times. And then at the end, he's willing to throw it all away to save Chia, because he cares about Chia, and he wants to protect people far more than he ever wanted to start an all-android detective agency. Verlaine has spent the entire book believing that he's completely alone in the world. He's never going to really connect with other people. He's never going to have the same kinds of relationship with them that they have with each other. He's never going to belong among people because he's not a person. All he can ever do is look from the outside in and wonder what it's like to be part of that. And he's believed this for the entire book, and he's projected this onto Chia, saying that Chia also is never going to be able to connect with other people. He's alone, and the only person that's ever going to understand Chia is Verlaine, because they're the same and they're both not human. They've both been completely cut out from all of everything that humanity entails. And then there's Adam, who is not human, and he's an android. There's not really any doubt about whether or not he's an android, because he's demonstrated that he's an android multiple times, and he knows that he's an android, and he's not particularly upset about it. He doesn't feel any kind of really shame about it. He's not insecure about it, but he's also not upset about being an android. He's not bitter towards the people that made him. He's not envious of human beings for being human. He doesn't wish that he could be human. He doesn't feel negatively about it at all. He doesn't feel any kind of isolation from human beings. He doesn't feel like he's never going to be part of them. He doesn't care. Like, he doesn't think that it's a bad thing. He's not particularly bothered by it. And although being an android does make him awkward sometimes, and he doesn't quite understand the intricacies of certain human things, it doesn't stop him from forming connections with people. It didn't stop him from forming that bond with Chia. It didn't stop him from making friends, and it didn't stop him from enjoying things, and it didn't stop him from being part of a community, and it didn't stop him from being involved in the things that people do. It didn't stop him from doing anything, really. Adam's inhumanity hasn't pushed him into that position of loneliness and isolation that Verlaine thinks is inherent to being not human. Adam still has friends. Adam still connects with people. He still bonds with people. He still has relationships with people. In the end, Adam not being human doesn't matter at all. And that's why Adam's character is fundamental to the plot, just as much as Verlaine's, if not more. Because while Verlaine spends the whole book talking about how being inhuman is going to lead you down a path of isolation and loneliness and misery, and how your birth was a mistake, your existence means nothing, Adam is standing right there, also not human, and yet he's surrounded by friends and love, because it's not about whether or not you're technically human. You don't need to be human to be a person. You don't need to be human to form bonds with people. You don't need to be exactly like everyone else in order to be loved and cared for and to have connections with people and to be part of something. And that's what Verlaine got wrong, because it wasn't about whether or not he was human. He was the only person who cared about that. Verlaine was the only one who cared that Verlaine wasn't human, and he let that poison all of his interactions and his view on life until he found himself in a prison of isolation that he made. Verlaine stands there completely alone in a void of nothing, while Adam stands surrounded by people who love him, who care about him, and who he cares about in return, because it's not about them not being human. Verlaine believes that not being human is a prison that you can never escape from. In his mind, it's a glass box keeping you separate from everyone else, and you can never break free from it. You can never cross over to the other side. All you can do is look through the glass and wonder what it's like to be part of everyone else. And Adam is standing on the other side of that glass, looking through at Verlaine, and Adam does not have a glass box of his own. There are no bars keeping Adam trapped. There's nothing keeping him cut off from everyone else, because the prison that Verlaine is in isn't a prison formed by his not being human. It's a prison that he has formed himself. It's a prison that he's made out of his own feelings of inadequacy and his own feelings of difference. The prison that Verlaine is trapped in is a prison of his own making. The final nail in the coffin for that is that Verlaine did have a connection with someone, because he had a connection with Rimbaud. Because Rimbaud didn't care whether Verlaine was human or not. Rimbaud didn't love Verlaine because he was a human being. He loved him because he was Verlaine, and whether he was human or not, that wouldn't have changed that. Because he would still have been Verlaine. He still would have been himself. And Verlaine couldn't bring himself to consider that maybe the feelings of loneliness and isolation he had were just feelings. He couldn't bring himself to think that maybe his feelings of loneliness weren't a reflection of reality. Maybe he wasn't doomed to be alone forever. He couldn't bring himself to consider that that was a possibility, and that was his downfall. Verlaine created his own self-fulfilling prophecy because he believed so strongly that he was always going to be alone, and because of that, he fled from everyone who wanted to be with him. The glass box that separates Verlaine from everyone else is a box that he made himself. That's why Adam is one of the most important characters in the entirety of Stormbringer, because Verlaine sits in a prison of isolation, and he insists that it's inherent to the condition of being different, and Adam proves him wrong just by existing. Because Adam's different as well. Neither Adam nor Verlaine are human, but Adam still has people that care about him. He still has friends. He still makes connections with people. He still can be part of something, because he might not be human, but he's still a person. And it doesn't matter whether he's human or not, because that's the whole point of Stormbringer. Chuya spends most of the story uncertain about whether or not he's human, and it really bothers him. And Adam stands next to him the entire story, quietly showing us that the answer doesn't matter. It wouldn't change anything regardless of whether Chuya is or isn't human, because he's still Chuya. And if he were to suddenly find out that he's a clone or that he's a artificially created thing, it wouldn't change the fact that he still has things that he likes. He still has hobbies. He still has a favorite color. He still has things that he loves. He still has people that he cares about. He still cries. He still laughs. He's still capable of being part of the rest of society, because you don't need to be a human to be a person. You don't need to be exactly like everyone else to belong somewhere. And that's what Verlaine got wrong. With every scene that Adam is in, he proves over and over and over again that Verlaine is wrong. You are not doomed to live in isolation. You are not doomed to be lonely and misunderstood forever. No matter how different you are from everyone else, it doesn't mean that you are incapable of being loved or of being cared about or of having friends. Adam proves Verlaine wrong by being alive. The point of Stormbringer is that it doesn't actually matter whether Chuya is human or not, because it wouldn't change anything. Even if he were to suddenly figure out whether or not he's human, he would still be Chuya. And to the people that care about him, to his friends, to the people that love him, that wouldn't change anything. The Flags didn't go through all that trouble to get him a photo because he was human. They did it because he's their friend.
And we do get an answer as to whether Chuya is human or not anyway, from this excerpt, which I will read to you now. The target was this physician who had been living in this region for years, and his wife. Her husband was now a kind-hearted doctor, but that wasn't the whole story. He was ex-military, and he held a post on the town council as well. Put simply, he was not someone who could be taken lightly. The wife herself came from a long lineage of warriors and had all the etiquette and decorum of the upper echelons of society. They were childless. They had a son long ago, but he passed away. That much was in the records. He got caught up in a war. He was an unruly child who got in a fight in elementary school with his classmate and ended up beating a kid 4 years older than him. The classmate insulted his parents, which started the fight. He didn't back down even though the classmate was older and was using a pencil as a weapon. When the classmate charged at him, he didn't flinch, but instead threw a punch. When Mori told Chuya this, he added the following explanation as well. Pencil lead is made of solid carbon, which is mostly unreactive, so it doesn't change much even after piercing the skin and entering the body. That is why the lead from a pencil stab often remains in the body for years. The boy had been stabbed in the base of his right wrist, the exact same place as the darkened stab wound on Chuya's right wrist. Chuya watched the couple. The husband took out a persimmon bundled in a Japanese wrapping cloth. After handing half to his wife, they began enjoying the snack together. The wife took out a canteen filled with tea and poured some into a cup while saying something to her husband. He laughed. Chuya couldn't hear what they were talking about. He thought back to the boss's explanation. The bodies of artificial skill-derived life forms were made from the cells of the original skill user. As a result, there was no way to surgically tell them apart. Nevertheless, there were differences given they had lived separate lives. Various physical disparities were possible. Scars, for example. So at the end of the book, we find that Chuya is human. And that answer doesn't change anything. And it wouldn't have changed anything if he wasn't human either. Because it doesn't matter. The whole point of Stormbringer is that it doesn't matter. Because he's still Chuya. And the people that love him for being Chuya.